Hi, how are you today? I wanted to talk about finger patterns today. This is very, very overdue. But thank you for you who put the comment down on one of my previous videos. I always appreciate feedback. So it was a good reminder that I've been meaning to do this video for quite a while. So I did bump it to the front of the list. But before I do that, I made a huge mistake, a catastrophic mistake. There was a time, I think it's been 2 years ago now, that I went through and I kind of changed a lot of my settings and my defaults on my YouTube as a creator, and I put the wrong email address. So my email is violindoctor@yahoo.com. It was wrong everywhere. And I only realized it 2 years later. I could not believe it. And I was wondering, I got so busy, but anyway, I was so busy I didn't notice a lot, but it was kind of lingering in the back of my mind. I don't receive very much, but I definitely receive, nice messages, and, people reach out to me for lessons. And it's really lovely because I do hear from people from all around the world. It's really nice. And it was so quiet for a long time. I went back and fixed every single one, I think, manually. Whew. That was not good. Hopefully all my videos have the correct email on. So I am so sorry. And you know what happened? As soon as I switched everything over, literally just 1 to 2 or 3 days later, I got an email from a viewer. So I felt terrible. So if you have ever reached out to me and I never responded, I usually always respond. So it means, unless there's some, really, really good reason, I usually respond because I don't get tons of emails yet, So please, if you ever emailed me and I never responded, please do email me again. And I'm so sorry about the mix-up. So now to the regular programming. I'm going to try to keep this intro as short as I can. Finger patterns are so important. They are absolutely monumental when it comes to violin. Reason being that violin is a lot of ear training and a lot of muscle memory. That's what goes into playing. Every time we pick up our instrument, we are constantly listening to ourselves. And then all that feedback loop of just regulating, so you play something and then the sound comes back and then you adjust accordingly. So if you put your finger a little bit too high, too low, your ear's always listening. However, a lot of it is still muscle memory. So every time you put your hand on the neck of your violin and you start moving those fingers and they just drop, they need to be dropping on the same places every single time. And even like less than 1 millimeter, far less than 1 millimeter of changes the pitch. Anyone who doesn't know violin very well at all, they would be shocked at how perfect you have to be to play a note correctly. I'm tempted to go into further detail because you know how I get, but a good example is the famous Midori video where she was a very, very young teenager and she broke her string during the Bartok concerto, and she just grabbed the concertmaster's violin, which is an appropriate thing to do, and continued playing. But her violin was a 3/4 size and the concertmaster violin was a full size. So how did she play everything correctly on a violin that's a completely different size? Regardless of all this, our brains are incredible machines. So we can never overestimate what our brain is capable of. I don't think anybody on this earth really knows. So we need to lay down the foundation by programming our muscles, right, to go to the right places and everything, and then our ears do the rest. Now, see how I'm tempted to go down all these tangents. For a pianist, the easiest beginner key to play in is C major because it doesn't use any, black keys. It just uses all white keys. Certain wind instruments, it's easier to play in keys that have a couple of flats in it. For a violinist, C major is not comfortable. Flat keys are not comfortable. Any key signature that has flats in it is what I'm talking about. Not comfortable. For us, we typically like D major. A major, those keys. And it also depends on which strings we're using. So for example, when our hand is relaxed, I don't know if you can tell, like if I were sleeping and drooling in bed, my hand would look like this. My pointer finger points more than other people, but most people, their pointer finger does have a little bit of a separation like this. Mine has a lot. I'm really not pointing. I'm just relaxing my hand right now. So I don't know if you can tell that there's a little bit more of a gap right here, and there's a very big gap here. And so this is why the main thing to notice is these two kind of relax together. And my violin teacher told me that the third and the fourth fingers share a tendon. I cannot vouch for that, but I should research that some more, exactly what's going on right here. And that's a whole nother topic I could spend a whole nother video on. The point is that when we play the violin and we're absolute beginner, typically we do the pattern where these two are together. I'll insert a clip showing you. So the first finger tape, the third finger tape, and then in between there, if you can see, the two can have two options. It can either sit here or it could sit there. So there, no matter what, on the violin, there has to be a choice made, right? The two plays that note or it plays this note. So on the A string, right, it would be a C, right, or a C sharp. So this one is a B, this one is a D, and then so between B and D, there are two options. This is much easier to play when the 2 is next to 3. It's very natural for the hands to do that. So the first finger pattern, to investigate would be this one. So I often tell my students, okay, do this. All right, do this, do this, do this. So I usually show them, and then sometimes they're playing their violin. I make them really quick to show me. They're still holding their violin, but they just show me up in the air, which finger pattern is it? Is it this one, right? Is it this one? Is it this one? Sometimes I learn it, I use it as a tool to introduce something new, but most of the time I talk about it later, once they've realized that their fingers can go to many, many different places. And then the more advanced you get, every finger has multiple roles to play, right? So they're always going, like higher or lower or like stretching or squishing, right? You're contracting or expanding. So there are many, many things that the fingers have to do. And to the point where they're like stretching, like, 10 notes, 12 notes, 13 notes. It really does exist on the violin. This one would be kind of like the standard pattern. And then the next one we learned is usually this one. So this is what I call the low 2. So it's like a regular one. I'll say, like, to my students, put your fingers on the tapes. Even though they don't have any tapes anymore, they know what I mean. There's certain language I train my students to understand. So when I just say a couple very short words, they already know what I want them to do. So if I say all the fingers are on their tapes, or put everybody on their tapes except for 2, so I'll talk that way. I'll just call this the beginner pattern, first pattern number 1. This would be the pattern number 2. I don't really know how to order them after that, possibly like this one. So in first position, this would be a high 3, right? So the 3 is now right next to 4. But again, if you bump everybody down lower, then this would be on the tape, right? And all three of these would be low. All of these patterns can be like moved a half step higher or a half step lower. And then it would kind of take on a whole new, life and personality, even though the finger pattern remains the same. So another one, and this is also a very common one in third position. A lot of kids get this wrong because they keep on wanting to do the one they're comfy with. But when you go to third position, often it's going to be this pattern and then this pattern. Usually it's mixed between these two for a beginner third position, learner. Number 4 might be this one, the freaky one, the one I referred to in my other video as freaky green. There's a teacher I work with, Barbara Barber. I want to give credit where it's due. This is not my idea. These are the things that I learned from my teacher trainer. She was one of them, and I guess there were about 3 or at least 3 in my lifetime. And so I did do some classes with her. I'm pretty sure this was the one she called Freaky Green, because you'll hear in my examples that it sounds weird. It sounds really, really weird. In music, if you have, these represent whole steps, by the way, so if you have 3 whole steps in a row, to listen to it alone, it does sound a bit weird. So you would need a bit more context, like musical context and sonorities and chord progressions for this to sound a bit more normal. Sometimes it does sound freaky on purpose, and composers do utilize this kind of scale pattern to make it sound a bit more tense or scary or weird. And then right after that, they would kind of resolve it. This would be like a and then B, C sharp, D sharp, F, or E sharp. So that's kind of a weird combination of notes. Another really popular one I talk about a lot is this one. This is like the live long and prosper one, right? So getting these 2 together and those 2 together, it is a bit odd when you have like a one, note right here. So this would be like a half step, whole step, half step. But then a lot of times when you see this pattern, it's actually bigger. So then it's like half step, 2 more notes here. So this is like an augmented second. And then this one would be a half step. So this one sounds like the sound where you hear like a minor scale. That's a harmonic minor, or a lot of music, like they call it, like kind of like snake charmer music, or a bit more like, Eastern, Middle Eastern type ethnic music, right? So it just really accentuates that augmented second sound. So what are some practical applications for this? You could play 5-note scales, pentascales, and just, work these out. You could also use them for third position practice, where you can play just 4-note scales, right? And just get used to the way it sounds, the way it feels, right? So I'm going to show you, some examples throughout and towards the end as well on, how to just practice those pentascales. And I think these are very, very valuable. A lot of books do this, and I also assign these mini exercises on an as needed basis. And so, I put it on my students' assignment list as one of their to-dos, that they should just warm up and play certain finger patterns, or I'll actually draw them in, to some staff paper, and I'll ask them to do that because, for example, this is the most common scenario, is they're learning a piece and there's a challenging spot, there's always a challenging spot. And if it's an intonation issue, or like they don't really understand what the new position is telling them to do. Like if they're not used to second position and they keep playing all their notes wrong, I usually help them to really kind of clearly see visually in their minds, what their fingers should be doing, what their notes actually are, how to find those notes, how the fingers should feel, how they should be, displayed, like how your fingers should be, spread out, right? Like the choreography or whatnot. And so these come in really, really handy. So for that whole week, they just every day take 1 minute and they practice this particular finger pattern. And I do it in the exact same way that it appears in their piece. And so if you every day very easily just pull this one thing out and isolate it and play it alone, that very difficult spot in your piece now becomes like a piece of cake, and then so when you go and you play it in your piece, you've done it so many times that it just feels pretty, easy. Hopefully they stand out in your mind. They're just mentally, because I'm a visual person. So when I say, to my students, do this, or it's this, right? Or there's actually this one too. There's this one, right? And then there's this one. So there's actually a lot more. I'm going to think about whether I should include those in this video or not. But just so you know, and then this one, everybody hates this one on the violin. So this is like when you would play chromatic scales. So try these warm-ups, just maybe pick one pattern and do it, practice them. There are different ways to practice them. So I'll try to include that in the end. And then maybe pick a different one. And then you might notice, like when you're practicing your piece, I would just challenge you to do that right now. Go practice your piece, find a place that's difficult to learn, and then like go and see what pattern that is. And often you'll see like a collection of notes. And so you just figure out what notes, they represent or what notes they are. It might be a little hard for you to kind of sift them out and pull them out from your repertoire, but if I have a chance, I will also give you an example of that. But even if you're not able to get to that level of, difficulty yet, just practicing these finger patterns alone in an isolated, fashion, like little mini scales, they will help tremendously. If you're pretty good with the all first position, you can and should do them on every string. And if you're good with that, then I would definitely do them in third position. And I would definitely do some in second position, because second position has tons of this and tons of this one, and that's usually why students don't like it. There's a little bit of this one, right? So second position is usually a bit tricky. Fourth position often has like that one. Of course, it depends on what key you're playing in, what key signature the piece is in, and then in combination with the position, then that would, show you which pattern you need to do. So hopefully that will help, and let me know if you have any questions. I'm sure if this is new to you, then I might have to do a second video just kind of breaking it down a bit more. But there's the kind of I'm just kind of laying it all out there for you, and hopefully you take what you can and use it. All right. Hope you have a great day.